2 years ago, we're thinking about what telcos can do, and like always, put as a service behind it, and you have an innovation topic. So we started to build something like network as a service, and then we take a look what is happening right now in network as a service, and we see all these three big players: Infobip, Twilio, OneEdge. Maybe some of you know them or talk to them on the booth there to Infobip. They offering communication APIs, so sending out SMS, sending out video calls and so on to customers, so in normal our business. So and then we're thinking, oh okay, we slipped this business, and let's see what's maybe next. And so we started in the beginning, we're starting to talk to some companies, so complete different sectors, from vendors over gaming companies, developer communities like GitHub, and ending in companies like PayPal and so on. And we asked them, what are you thinking about telco APIs, and what do you thinking telcos can do there? And we see that APIs must, right now are in every service there are APIs there. Why telcos not offering APIs? There's currently no telco in the world which is offering APIs. So and nobody is really waiting for us. So if we go to them and ask them, hey, do you want APIs from us? They said, I don't know what I want from you. So we're thinking, okay, there is no market for us, but we try to get more insight. And then we're coming to these really questions. So we get a small portfolio and asking them again. So what do you see? Are some of the APIs you can imagine? So we're really going on high level and asking, are you interested into service data? Are you interested in location data? Are you interested in some buzzword network slicing and other topics? And they coming back and saying yes. So the informations are quite good for us, because maybe like the last one, identity and authentication, if I'm thinking about like all these two-factor authentication SMS, so this is something we don't need anymore in the future, hopefully, because we exactly knowing that the SIM card is in the device with sending out the request, and then you have your two-factor authentication. And out of this, we trying to take a look what capabilities we have, and in the end we're coming up with the three. So what telcos really have is we knowing everything about the tariff. So in Germany, if you want to have a SIM card, you need to go with your ID card there to register. So you need to register with your ID card. So we exactly know which person it is. We even knowing which family members are behind this and everything. So we exactly knowing which person it is, which tariff we have, and which bank he is, and everything like this. Then we're having all information about the SIM cards. So we knowing when a SIM card is connected, when a SIM card is losing connection. We knowing in nearly where a SIM card is, even without GPS, because they are connected to our cells. We knowing, if the SIM card is moving, when a SIM card was swapped, if a SIM card, in which country a SIM card currently is. So we knowing a lot of SIM cards, and what we even also know is a lot of our network information. So we know where we're having like coverage, not coverage, also we know where we have coverage, and even we have congestion and all the other topics. So we exactly know our network. And then we're starting to think, okay, what can we offer? So we decided to give out some of these data to developers to directly get these out of telco networks. And even we want developers to interact directly with our network. So let's give some examples. So one of them is quality on demand. So if I'm thinking, so my favorite use case is I'm going to a festival, I'm standing in the crowd, and there's coming somebody and want to sell me beer. So you don't accept any cards because his Wi-Fi and his mobile network is so bad that he can not do the credit card check. So I need to pay by cash. I never have cash at my side, so I don't get a beer. So and with the quality lift up in the network for just this small credit verification, it's possible to give them a higher prioritization over all the other members in the crowd and get it. So if we're talking about quality in a telco, we're having on the right side quality on demand in the network, so you're getting a higher quality when you want it. Even if you take a look at the home networks, most of the people having the routers from the telcos there. So maybe not the developers, but most of the normal people have the normal routers which are getting from the telco there, and so we also can influence them. Then we're having like Deutsche Telekom is owning the whole backbone in Germany. So we can making also prioritization in the backbone, so that you're getting lower latencies, and you then coming to the next topic, best edge server. So to get the best edge location, which is currently the fastest connectivity to your application or to your end device. So all of these is giving like a low latency, higher bandwidth for the end consumers in the end. So another, just to give another example is what we can do, we can verify locations. So we're having a lot of cells in Germany and even over the world, and we can say if a device is near the cell or not. So we're exactly knowing, even if the GPS is off, even if the device is not having Wi-Fi on or something else, we're exactly knowing where device, not exactly knowing, but we can say it's in a radius of 200 meters around this. So one of the APIs we are currently talking about is network request location. I can ask, is Noel really in this multi-kino here? And we can say yes, because we're knowing the cell ID out there. Just a second. Yeah, okay. So this is another example. Then, like I mentioned, what we also can give out to developers like a connection status. So really to knowing how much the bandwidth is currently the device is getting, maybe the bandwidth what is coming in the next minutes and next hours. So we can make also like predictions for developers so they can adjust their streams. Maybe you saw out there the booth where they're doing like the CDN adaptation from the video streams. With this information, it's quite much better because you're not just adapting for the device, you're adapting directly for the connectivity which this device have. So like predictions, we even can say if device is currently moving from, let me call it, from Berlin to Munich because it's on this road and it's following this road. And this is like, we're knowing a lot of this. And what we even also know is which applications are installed on the device, because we're getting all these IP flows and we're knowing what is behind an IP flow. It's getting a little bit harder if it's an IP flow just for AWS, but most of the servers we can identify. And there are some features we can also wake up IoT devices in the future over the 5G network. So just one more example what we can do. I mentioned customer data. Customer data is really critical. So we are Deutsche Telekom. We are owned a little bit by the government, so we need to take care about this. And so of this we have like completely anonymized data. So we're having on the left side you can see a little bit of our cells we're having like in Cologne. And what we can say is like how many people are in one cell and how they are moving even, and what genders they have, how old they are, and where they are coming from. So we can say like in this cell there are 200 people and 100 are coming from Hamburg, 100 coming from the Netherlands, and the other 50 coming from Belgium or something like this. So we really can give like statistic data. This is really interesting for like routing planning for car companies and drone companies, so they can see where they can drive and where they can be, and even they knowing is their car normally on a Saturday evening at 4 o'clock, is there normally a traffic jam or not? And based on this information they can do a little bit. So maybe you know it from Google, they do it with they're checking all the devices which are there, but we can go directly to the network cell and see what is going on there. So this is what we can do, but in the end we are a telco company. What we're doing in the past is we're selling SIM cards, we're selling network connectivity, maybe we're selling some consulting, but this was all. So we had the questions what we can do. So first of all, how to build APIs in a way that non-telco developers can understand them. I will show you later why I mentioned something like this. Then we're having how to teach internal people about network APIs. If I'm going to our salespeople and to their key accounts on the other side, they are just tariff basics. They know how to sell SIM cards, they're knowing how to sell connectivity, but they're not knowing to sell any software products. Then we have a big footprint with Deutsche Telekom, but we go to Google and ask them, hey, what we need to do that you implement our APIs into your Android system. They said, nothing, you are too small. So even our, I don't know how many million SIM cards we're having, we are too small because they have the whole footprint with billion of SIM cards, but it doesn't matter, not changing that they will not build something in just for one telco. And then the last question is what go-to-market options are there? So how we can reach as a telco developers without any developer community. So, and I will now go through these questions a little bit and give some examples what we did there. So, complex telco world nobody will understand. In the telco industry, we're having a lot of standardization from different vendors and different companies. So, this is an example from a source code out of this 3GPP standardization, and we give this to some developers and ask them, hey, can you say us what these parameters are meaning? And they're coming back and saying no. So And then we say, okay, maybe these standardization APIs are not that to give out to developers. So we decided in our first concept, okay, let's develop an API, or this is like the network API, and we decided to build service APIs on top so that developers hopefully easily can use them. And we're coming out with something like this. So this is like for prioritization traffic. It's really simple, putting the user device, putting the application server, and port and protocol are optional, and request what profile you want, so low latency or high bandwidth profile. And this is all you need right now to getting high prioritization in a telco network. And this was our first concept. Then we were thinking about, okay, this is our proof, we found it nice, but no developer touched it. So we built up some labs to test with developers. So we have one lab in Berlin together with Mavenir, we have one lab in Krakow together with Ericsson, and we have one lab in our in T-Mobile in Seattle with Nokia together. So, and the goal there was really to test with developers these APIs. So we invited a lot of startups, we invited a lot of higher companies on our cost. So we flew them in and pay all the accommodation to test the APIs. I have a 30-second video now, which is showing a little bit the experience, what's happening there, and what our goals with this. Because we are thinking, yeah, we can build something, but it's more like, we don't call it user experience, there's user experience, we call it more developer experience, because it's a completely new market and we need to build APIs that everybody can understand. And yeah, I will show shortly the video, 30 seconds, and then yeah. So just some impressions what we did there. And so we called it massive teamwork because we tested a lot of partners. So on the right side you see our program, it's called Early Access Program. So this is where we invited a lot of startups and companies to our spots. Then we tested, of course, with some bigger companies. So last year we showed a use case together with BMW and Valeo. So it's like autonomous valet parking, but not the car is parked by itself. It's really like a camera system and a server is manipulating the car. So the car is more like blind and is manipulating by a camera system. And then we did a use case this year together with Siemens Energy and Microsoft, and also with our colleagues in T-Mobile, where we're showing like remote maintenance. So somebody have glasses on and an expert is sitting behind and giving some insights how to yeah, maybe solve a problem. So you can imagine Siemens Energy, they're having all these big energy machines, and if they're not working, they're losing a lot of money. So they need to fly in all the experts to the machine, and with this remote maintenance, they maybe can solve problems without even fly people in. And so yeah, I will show this use case a little bit later, how it's architectural built, but yeah, so this is what we did. So we different use cases, like you can see drones, really small startups which have like these delivery robots, a lot of augmented reality, games, traffic, teleoperative driving. So we try to go into most of the companies to find that out. Yeah, and maybe what we can offer is like we're doing this test, and if somebody wants to be in part of this as a developer or with this company, we're having a Slack, so everybody is welcome to join. Like I mentioned, it's most none of cost for us because we're inviting people to test. So then I will go to the next. I will show the QR code also a little bit later again. How to teach internal people about network APIs. This was quite hard, because if I'm going to somebody and saying, yeah, there will be something like a portal and they will buy the APIs there, or the salespeople saying, yeah, what is my job then? And I say, yeah, let's see. Oh. And so they was really not happy to hear something like this. You can imagine we have a lot of salespeople in Deutsche Telekom. So really a lot. And then I said, okay, how we can bring them a little bit more how they can understand what an API is. So the example which is always working was for me like this ice cream seller. So like on the back you see all our capabilities in the network. So, and the ice cream seller is our service API. So she grabs the ice cream and gives it to me. And this is like, she's working like the service API. So we have two systems. Then most of the time I showed them a little bit like APIs looking a little bit like this. So they understand it and say, okay, it's like a sentence, yes. And then most of the time I take some of the, so we have key accounts for different areas. So for banking, finance, and so on. And what we did then is more like to show them how an API, we don't need to read this, how we can bring an API into their user flow, say, discussing with their customers. So they're really understanding where the need is for the customers, and they really need to understand that they don't need to talk. So if our key accounts go to Deutsche Bank key accounts or somewhere else, they're talking with the other key accounts, which is buying SIM cards. So they're not talking with the tech people. So most of the time, then the discussion was over. Then we decided, okay, please go again and ask for some people out of the innovation departments or of the development departments, so that we're having like the right people to talk about this. Because if you're going to develop and saying, hey, we're building APIs, they're saying, oh yes, I know what an API is, let's discuss what you can give us. And if you're talking to a salespeople, oh, I just want to buy a new SIM card for a better tariff. So it was really like to find the right people. And the next step, what I did then, I call it make them feel like a developer. So I opened Postman, created a collection, and say to them, hey, here's a SIM card, try to prioritize it. And explain them what they need to fill in somewhere to get a positive result, and that was all. So now we're having some salespeople which are not right now using Postman or other tools, going to customers and showing like this. They never write one line of code, but they can use Postman and Postman collection. So they're feeling like, oh yeah, I can do this. I now understand the product. And this is like what really easy for me was to explain them. So then, now the next point is nobody rebuilt their source code just for DT. So what now? So this was like a big point. So we decided 2 years ago from the Telecom side, okay, if we don't do it, we need to make it open source. So we reached out to the Linux Foundation, to the GSMA. GSMA is like standardization of Deutsche Telekom, of telco industry. And then we try to build up something like an open source alliance. And this works quite good. So we founded the Alliance Camara together with some other partners under the roof of Linux Foundation and the GSMA. And we announced it last year on the MWC, Mobile World Congress. And like you can see, all the big telcos are in, all the hyperscalers are in, all the vendors, a lot of big players are in. So all these players are working on standardization of these network APIs. This is really good because then we're getting the leverage into really each network and into in the main systems. Let me call it like this. We have currently 77 named partners, which gives us allowance to show the logo. 214 companies participating, so in this standardization. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's really nice to see that what 1 year ago started is now rolling. And even it's not just focused just on telco, because all the other companies are coming in, and it's completely open source, so everybody can join. This is also nice. So we're having also like small companies like Open Sesame, which are a startup based in, I don't know where, but somewhere in the US, which are doing like low latency voice transmission for gaming and stuff like this. So they decided to join to give us some insights and maybe to request their own APIs there. Maybe just some insight what currently they're working on. Different topics. So we're having like some anonymized subscriber IDs, carrier billing, so really telco, device location, and even we are getting a lot of these edge cloud topics. So there is really active, I don't know, 5G Future Forum, if maybe somebody knows this. This is like an initiative from AT&T and AWS. They're putting all their APIs over. And also we're having some more like all this fraud prevention, so number verification, is the number really in the network or not, so really important for banking, SIM swap, and all the quality on demand, device identifier, and so on. So, but this is not enough. then we reached out back to GSMA and asked, okay, what we can do to make, this is technical standardization, so that nobody's saying, I build it into my network. So we're going back to the GSMA and asking, okay, what we can do now. And they announced this year something like called Open Gateway. So you see a lot of funny faces there, and all of them said that they will bring the APIs into the telco network. And as you can see, I guess there's one telco provider out of your country in, because I guess it's the whole globe we're having there, and all of these 21 telcos will bring in the APIs into their network, which are aligned in Camara. So we will having like really the whole globe using these bringing the APIs to developers. So you have standardized APIs you can use and you can build into your application, and you don't need to switch the API for each company. This is quite nice. And also we're working on like some, I guess some of you know roaming. So we're working that if a Telefonica card is in a German network, that they also can use the API, not just with the Deutsche Telekom SIM card. So a bit like federation we're also doing here. Yeah, so just one point more. So this year MWC, so on the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, this was like one of the main topics for the telco industry. 18 operators are showing telco network APIs there. The Open Gateway was announced. All the big analyst firms out of this area writing about this. So it's getting like a real push, and everybody now is waiting for the go-to-market. So everybody is preparing right now. And yeah, I will now go to the go-to-market, what telcos can do there and how they will do. Maybe we're starting with something like this. It's looking complicated, but hopefully not. So on the button we have all these capabilities telcos have. And then there are different options, so they can build something like their own gateways. So you have a gateway from Deutsche Telekom, you have a gateway from KDDI. So as a developer, you need to go to Deutsche Telekom, get the API. Maybe then you go to KDDI, getting your other endpoints. So you need to handle a lot of APIs. For this, we're working on like operator and federation and interconnection between all the portals. So you can go to Deutsche Telekom because they are your home provider, or you have the best contact with them, or to somebody else, and ask, okay, I want the aggregated API for all SIM cards in Germany. So we're getting also Vodafone, Telefonica, but just with one endpoint. This is one option. And then we're having like the same API in each network. Maybe make a contract for Europe, another contract for Asia with other telco, and you're getting like the best of the best, but the API is the same, maybe to a different endpoint gen for the different regions. And exactly, these northbound APIs are all standardized. So the next point is, but yeah, in the end, we don't have a developer community. No telco has a developer community, I guess. So if you take a look at the business, I guess most of these companies having like the biggest developer communities behind them. So I guess most of you are using Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud. And our goal is to really to work with them together with all of this and bringing the APIs directly to their marketplaces, not to their marketplaces, into their source codes or SDKs they want to build. So we're having the typical platforms like Vonage, Infobip, Twilio. Nokia is building a new API platform. Then we're having like the hyperscalers with Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud, and also Meta. And on the other side, we're having also like these small companies which doing a lot. Qualcomm, where they also building like an API Cosmos for their chips. So you can call APIs from the chips directly, and they also want to integrate our APIs, and this is quite nice. So, and how will this look like? So this year on the Mobile World Congress, we showed a use case together with Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft Azure has a program, it's called Programmable Telco. So they're building SDKs for developers, and they're integrating the telco APIs for this. So they announced this this year also, and we did one use case with them to public use case. So they integrated our API, our quality on demand API, into their Microsoft Azure software, so that the Siemens can use this API over their Microsoft Azure cloud instance. So they're having an SDK in a typical Azure language, so like the same feeling for developers if they're using Azure, or they translated it a bit. So, and they can use it. So you see here the expert, and you see here the remote worker from the energy with the glasses on, and he can then see the he gets a better quality view out of the product. So they use Teams for this. So Microsoft Teams was used for this, and then give them a higher quality so they can see more details in the end. And yeah, this is what happened there. So I guess I'm a little bit fast, I see. So I am nearly done. So maybe let's go into an interaction now. Yeah. So if not, maybe I can give some points which are critical, and maybe somebody will ask. So maybe talk about net neutrality and other topics like this. So net neutrality is like a really important point. So like I mentioned, we are owned 40% by the German government. If we're doing something in our network, we are the first one who gets the regulation on top to see if we're doing it right, because no, they will blame us for doing something wrong directly. So we really, they're really hard to us. So what we're seeing is we have something it's called like special services. So a special service is something that will not work, will work without any connectivity. And this is something, it needs to be like not a Netflix stream, not a WhatsApp message. It needs to be like a real use case, like a car which is driving, like a glass where mechanics are working on something. So maybe just a game where you're exchanging like the data. So currently we're not talking about cloud gaming and all the other stuff, but we're talking about really use case where we're exchanging a lot of data. And this is where they're saying, yeah, it's okay to build it like this. So they don't give a big rejection. They don't say it's okay. They say try it. Maybe you get a cold case, maybe not. And we want to see. And they also say that they will open for the future. So we're going from 4G network. So all these, what I showed, is available in 4G and 5G non-standalone. So like 4G core, and you see a 5G in the top. So the fake 5G. And yeah, so if it's a 5G standalone, you're getting a lot more capabilities to do. And there we can really then go into building slices. So like separate different network parts. And then the regulations say, okay, for these parts, there can be special rules. So, yeah. Okay, then let's go to questions.